right, my friends, welcome to this week's American Mussar Community Gathering. It is our second week of exploring the soul trait of equanimity, and we've actually been having a great conversation before the recording even started about maintaining your equanimity through natural disasters. And perhaps we'll come back to that. But right now, we will begin as we always do with a short meditation. So please relax and close your eyes and take in a deep breath through the nose and hold, and exhale through the mouth and hold. And again, inhale through the nose and hold, and exhale through the mouth and hold. And as you go at your own pace of inhaling through the nose and holding, and exhaling through the mouth and holding. If thoughts should come into your head, just observe them and let them pass, like watching a car pass by on the road. Now is not the time for solving problems. Right now, all you need to do is inhale through the nose and hold, and exhale through the mouth and hold. And on your next inhale, say to yourself, Shema. And on the exhale, listen. Shema, listen. In Shema, we're listening deeply, without judgment, without offering advice. In Shema, we are listening with an open heart. Shema, listen. And when you're ready, you may open your eyes. Welcome, Martin. Glad you could join us. We'll begin our conversation today. Let's see, I'm trying to find, oh, there it is. Here we go. With a quote from Rabbi Menachem Mendel Levin from his book Heshbon HaNefesh. He writes, "Rise above the good and the bad, for they are not worth disturbing your equanimity." And so I have a question to go with that, which is, what does disturb your equanimity? And we touched on this a little bit last week, that sometimes there's particular soul traits that disturb our equanimity, and that's something we'll come back to in the breakout rooms. So you can share a check-in for how equanimity showed up for you, how you might interpret this teaching about rising above the good and the bad, or you could talk about something that tends to disturb your equanimity. I know for me, my equanimity was very disturbed by the Knicks' huge come from behind victory last night. I'm a I grew up a Knicks fan. My father was a lifelong suffering Knicks fan, as was my aunt and many members of my family. So my Knicks fandom has kind of come out, and I was quite despondent in the first half, and then beyond, I was so excited I couldn't sleep last night. So you might say, "Well, what's the big deal? You got happy, excited," but I couldn't. I literally like got 4 hours of sleep. I was tossing and turning all night. So it was not without I could have enjoyed it while maintaining my equanimity, perhaps. I don't know. That would have been tough. But so, who would like to share next? Yes, Eileen.
This is one thing that happened. I was all set um, Tuesday to have a surgical procedure on my back.
Hmm.
And I'd been waiting for about a month. And my husband and I went down to Nashville, where there's Vanderbilt, for it.
Hmm.
And anyway, Tuesday night I was in bed and I got a phone call and they said all the surgeries are canceled for tomorrow. And I had been so prepped mentally and physically for it that I was actually speechless. Um,
Hmm.
and I could have gotten really upset, and I did not. One of the things that helped was knowing it's going to happen sometime,
Hmm.
this thing that'll relieve me of a lot of pain, I think. It's going to happen sometime, it's just not going to happen now. And that really helped um, to to ward off,
Yeah.
oh, just getting kind of crazy about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Because getting crazy about it wasn't going to change
No,
thing.
no.
So it sounds like you practice patience. It's like I'm just gonna, this too shall pass.
Yes, yes, I did.
I can make it until it does.
Yeah,
And I am sorry your surgery got
yeah.
postponed.
Thanks.
That's a
Yeah,
bummer.
it was kind of a bummer.
Yeah.
Uh, but
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
yeah.
Beth.
Um, since we've been working, since I've been with this group, I've been uh, equanimity is something that I've worked on, and I've made quite a lot of progress in maintaining my equanimity in traffic when I'm driving.
Mm,
And lately, I find that one of the things that helps me is to consider it a mitzvah to allow this guy in front of me who wants to cut in line,
mm,
or, to forgive the guy who turned right from the left hand lane because he didn't know any better. Maybe he's a tourist, he's lost, whatever. And reminding myself that there have been times when I've also been lost and probably not made good traffic moves. And so, and also a sense of less rush. Um,
mm,
and not sure what that fits under, but just figuring, okay, if I'm a minute late, 2 minutes late, but I'm still alive, is better than being there on time but dead
mm,
in a traffic accident. So, but I find I'm not as upset when I drive, and when I get to where I'm going, I'm not frazzled.
mm,
I get out of the car and I'm just me.
mm. That's wonderful, Beth. Thanks for sharing that. And I don't know about the second part, but the first part, I was hearing a lot of the sole trait of honor, not judging people to the side of merit. Oh, maybe they're lost. Or, oh, wow, they've given me an opportunity to practice, a mitzvah by letting them in. And so thank you. Wendy.
Oh, I'm glad you said that. Honor, she's not. You're not going to judge me, Beth. I don't want you guys to judge me, but I'm going to tell you anyway. What disturbs my equanimity is kind of strange in a way because I feel like I do have equanimity normally, like as a matter of course, and then if any of the soul traits gets out of balance, it affects the equanimity. And the way they get out of balance the most for me is when somebody tells me that I'm not capable of doing whatever it is that I've either promised to do or that I'm supposed to be doing. And I know that's humility. That's nothing but a misbalance of humility, which is it's hard to talk about not being
Mm,
humble, but it's not so much just humility, but it's also maybe an, I honor them too much in thinking that they
mm,
know more than I do or something. I don't know what it is, but nothing can come between myself and equanimity like somebody like squashing me. So
mm.
sorry about that, guys.
Well, we're listening with an open heart, and that's a really powerful self-realization. until we can lovingly accept the truth of our situation, we're powerless to address it. And so knowing that is really powerful and important. So thank you for sharing that, Wendy. Bonnie.
So I've shared this with my friends, but I haven't shared it publicly. I have a granddaughter who has serious mental health issues.
Mm,
One of the diagnoses is borderline personality disorder,
mm,
and takes a lot for me on the phone with her. She's a junior in college. She's brilliant, brilliant. Um, is never to ask a question because her answer is, Mimi, you're not listening. But to say things like, oh, hmm, say more. So a year ago, I had a board meeting in Austin where she's at UT, and I spent like from 1 o'clock till through dinner and then dropped her off at her apartment. We went shopping first. We've been having these great texts and phone calls this whole year. And so I thought I'd go down and see her last week. And I've been corresponding with her dad and her stepmom. And her stepmom had said to me, after 2.5 days, you're going to need a vacation. I didn't quite get it.
mm,
She had two major meltdowns. One before she saw me on the second day I was there. I mean, we had a great night the first night and shopped and did everything and took her family out to dinner. And she got through it and she texted me and she said, I'm sorry, I had a bad session with the therapist and you can come pick me up and we can continue what we were doing. And that was great until the next day when the rental car broke down.
mm,
And she freaked out
mm,
and stormed out of the car, stormed. There were 5 bags from TJ Maxx and Home Goods for
mm,
her new apartment. And the only thing I could say to her is, I mean, she was just screaming at me I'm impossible and every adjective that you could think of.
mm,
And that she was just going to get an Uber and go back to her apartment and I should return everything. And the only thing I said to her was, Rebecca, you're going to have to make your own decision. If you need to go back to your apartment, you go back. I can't. I have to wait for the tow truck. I, my whole stomach was in knots. Um, I know I've never been there when she's had a full meltdown, and I don't know how to respond. And so there was no equanimity. There was, oh my God, what did I do? And
mm,
I know that somehow I played a role in it, but maybe tangentially, I don't know. But it just threw me for days. I
mm,
flew back Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I'm just, it's a week. And it happened a week ago today. I'm
mm,
not, I don't know when she's going to turn on a dime. And I don't, obviously 2.5 days was going to be way too much. I learned that.
mm.
But so I'm listening to how you all get through difficult situations.
Bonnie are listening with an open heart, and that sounds like such a hard and such a heartbreaking situation to deal with. And last week one of the things we talked about is equanimity is not the same as tranquility. And equanimity is not does not mean that everything is always going to be okay, even if you're a master of equanimity. And boy, there are some circumstances that are just going to push us beyond what we can handle. And um, I'm, it sounds like you had a really, really awful thing to deal with.
And normally I just say the serenity prayer over and over and over again. And I didn't even think of it. That's how I was so
Yeah.
glad I had my Kindle with me because it was 90 degrees. We parked by the restaurant. We had lunch and it was air conditioned. So I just took myself back into the restaurant, kept my phone open and opened my Kindle and read because there
Mm.
was nothing else I could do.
Yeah.
So in that case, I took care of myself.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is, you know, that is in a sense, you did maintain a centered self even as your heart was broken because you took care of yourself. Yes, Marjorie.
Well, ecuanimity is not always going to be like being centered, being in that. What is this encryption thing? Okay. Um, and I have learned that I'm going to go, there are situations where I am going to go to either closer to either end of that spectrum, but I'm learning that you don't go all the way to either end. Like there are going to be situations that are I'm a human and I'm going to react to certain things a certain way, but I have learned like how to pull myself back to center quicker or near center and then from either end and then just evaluate like, well, that there's that Mussar, what is it? The Bahira point where where you have to look internally and kind of figure out, well, what's happening here? And next time, how do I handle it better? Or I thank myself, I give myself credit for not going all the way off the deep end. 'Cause,
Yeah.
there's going to be situations. I mean, I've been the receiving end of people getting angry and yelling at me for like what, in my head going, what are you talking about? And
Mm.
it just stop and I breathe and I'm like, okay, and it's not me. I realize it's just not me, and how am I handling this person who's obviously in a circumstance that I don't understand?
Yeah. Thank you, Marjorie. And I think the word you might be looking for is Hitlam-Du. It's self-reflective learning. Yeah. But here is the choice point. And how can I do better next time? That's the Hitlam-Du.
What am I experiencing now? But well, they're both really, yeah, they're those to me are like my greatest. It's more than me dote for me. I love those two, like
Mhm.
'cause you can processing all of that. Anyway, that's a whole
Well, the
nother
great
class.
Mussar master, Rabbi Shlomo Volbe, once famously, and like at his sort of, they had a big party for him toward the end of his life. And he asked each of his students, what's the most important midot? And everybody went around and said things. And he said, in true rabbinic fashion, oh, I have no students because the most important one is Hitlam Dut, is self-reflective learning. Because that's kind of the higher level process um, that we go through. And I once had a friend call me, and he was like calling me from the airport because their flight had been canceled for the next day. And his wife had a doctor's appointment the next week, and she was really worried about it. And she like blamed him for everything, you know. You should have had an earlier flight, and it was kind of one of these things where somebody loses it, but he was really shaken. And he was like, maybe I did something wrong. I don't know. And I wish I had done a better job of saying, you didn't do anything wrong. She's just scared and having a bad moment. And I didn't quite figure out what was going on. And I wish I'd been a little better friend for him. And yeah, I'm also remembering once my mother went off on me about something and I really felt bad. Um, but, and I did make a mistake there, but it's very hard. It's very hard when we get blamed for things. Yes, Belle.
Listening to Bonnie, it seems to me that she honored the feelings that were being expressed and after that, she very quietly stated that she had to stay with the car, and then she took care of her own needs. So uh, if I were in that situation, yes, I would feel all my feelings, and I would probably be very sad and in a state of shock and scared because I don't like people blowing up in my face, and I don't feel comfortable seeing people out of control. But nothing was escalated. It was all honored and just accepted that this is not me. This has nothing really um, that I can do about the way this person's responding to this situation. So,
Thank you.
I guess I'm grappling with what more could have been done.
Well,
I
let's take a look at reading, unless you wanted to say something, Bonnie.
I look back on it and the only thing that really disturbs me is that I don't know how to respond when these things happen. I'm used to her getting angry on the phone and she hangs up. But this was very different. And yet her step parents, her dad and her stepmother have seen it. So what it really said to me was if you go back, very short visits, one day, one night, and the next day you fly home the third day.
Mhm.
Um, but thank you, Bill, for your support and your comments. I really, really appreciate it. And I
I
don't
just
want this
think
to
that
be a therapy session, guys. So let's
no, no,
not.
no. I understand that. For myself right now, all I can say is that when I'm in situations like that, just on a personal level, I just say to myself, I have no control over anybody else. That's all I say is I just jump into that. What's the situation? I can't tell you when somebody comes at me why they do it, and I don't spend much time trying to figure that out. I just know it's not mine; it's theirs. And getting off complete topic, equanimity for me is like, where do I find the hand? I'm having technical equanimity balance. Is there a hand that I can show on this? I'm having technical challenges and completely
Are
off.
you serious? Go
I
down to go down to
yes,
react. Click on the heart.
yes.
Did you see the heart under react?
Yes.
Okay. And
Ah,
then you will see raise hand, thumbs up.
oh, thank
There
you.
we go.
Excellent.
I happen to love technology and I just I love sharing it.
Thank you. I can't tell you what that means to me.
And notice it
Rabbi, you made
says,
a shit off here.
yes, and notice it says react too.
Yes, it does.
So, Wendy, if you could just hold your comments, I want to share another
It's not a
email.
comment, Rabbi Gray. It's not a comment. It's about the email that you sent out. Um, it was very intriguing, inner neutrality. And I just wanted to know if you could um, expound on that a little bit. Like, I think that would be something might help all of us, but it could not be now. It could be later in the session. But
That
just
had to
that
do
inner
with that other
neutrality.
word for equanimity.
Yes, yes, I think that is.
Yeah, it's a little bit related to this next um, teaching that I was going to share.
Yes, thank you.
Well, actually, yes, I'm going to continue to share. I think, I don't think I actually shared that one. But Wendy, why don't you read this idea of uh, this note from Rabbi Rachel Barenblatt?
Okay, I love her. I admire the ideal of equanimity, of responding to whatever arises from a place of centered acceptance and calm. As long as I do my best to be the kind of person I mean to be, to serve the divine and my communities in the ways I strive to serve, then that's what matters most. If I focus on my connection with something greater than myself, then I can handle things which seem in my limited understanding to be good or bad, with equal grace and presence. The Velveteen Rabbit.
So there's a reading from the Baal Shem Tov, which is a little similar to this, which is like just keep cleaving to God. And the video I sent was really good, and I do recommend it. It was a very nice set, and it taught me a lot. But it's almost there's this Kabbalistic idea, almost it's almost Buddhist, that you like detach from this world, that you really want to be kind of part of the higher world. And when you're really cleaving to God, and when you're kind of on this higher spiritual plane, then you're not going to react. My example of getting so super excited about the Knicks winning that I couldn't sleep, or other people's examples of, these terrible heartbreaks that leave us feeling kind of shattered. They're just kind of balanced. It's like, okay, something good might happen, something bad. I'm just going to keep doing my thing. And so that's a little different than I think the Mussar idea of equanimity. It's an interesting idea. And I can't remember the name of the rabbi who was teaching it, is like, well, that may not be what we want to strive for, because really you're removing yourself from the world. And like this was told, and he told this story about, well, are you ready to study Kabbalah? And the guy was deemed not ready because he would still get happy or disturbed internally when something happened, but he wouldn't let it impact his actions. And that's great for a Musarnik, but it's not good enough for a Kabbalist, I guess. You really have to be ready to detach from the world. So, Wendy, are you tracking with me? Is everybody kind of tracking with what I'm talking about
I
here?
am, and I was thinking about how I thought about it applying the inner neutrality by clinging to the divine would be one way to do it. In that when a person says something to, be negative and try to stop me from doing something that I know that I'm supposed to do, or I feel like I'm supposed to do, then why am I listening to that person? There could be another person in the room that would say the exact opposite. So that would bring me to some kind of neutrality. Like,
Hmm.
why believe this person over this? Do you see what I mean? That's what I was thinking, that inner neutrality would do. I just remember last week when Susan was saying she gets in her cocoon, I said, "Can I come in your cocoon with you?" Can you imagine that? She wouldn't want someone in the cocoon with her. But that's all I could think of, was I just wanted to get in there too.
Yeah. But is there a role, without going, thank you, Wendy. And that's kind of along the lines of what I wanted to talk about. Is there a role without going full Kabbalist? And we may not be raised in the clinging to the divine mindset. And for some people, that may seem almost cringy. But is there something about either a higher power or a higher purpose, or something that we can ground ourselves with in these times in maybe more difficult times, like we were talking about, when the earthquake hits, you gotta keep your
Let me
cool,
turn it down.
you know,
Right.
but that doesn't always, but sometimes the earthquake is someone else's behavior, which could really impact us. And there we don't actually have to keep our cool, because it's not life threatening, but it's emotionally threatening. So, what do we think? Is there something to cling to that could offer some grounding? Yes, Marjorie.
I go to being that this person as well as myself, if it's a person that, there's a conflict with, is still created in the divine image. And I have to really look for that. Um, but that that Rabbi Barenblatt quote, I think like how realistic, and I really try to invoke the divine as much as I can. And then I'm like, how far do I want to go there? Because we are still living in a very modern,
Mhm.
you still have to go on. I mean, it would be, I'd love to be living in Spot, and studying Kabbalah 24/7, but that's not very realistic in my life. But I guess ultimately it is just recognizing the divine and trying to find outlets that are spiritual, the Jewish spiritual for me.
Mm. Yeah, thank you, Marjorie. Yeah, no, I really like that answer because, for some people it may be like, yeah, that's fine. And maybe for other people there's something to cling to or something that could come into play. Yes, Eileen.
Um, I think I try to cling to something, and the something is something that I can only intuit. I don't even know for sure about, but I intuit that there's something stronger and better, more solid than I am. And it really does help
Mm.
to make contact with that when things are scary or swirling around or enraging, what have you. So for me, I'm glad I feel very lucky that I intuit something bigger than myself. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you, Eileen. Yes, Wendy.
I have a question. So could our Musar practice actually be a higher purpose?
I don't know.
Wouldn't that be getting us prepared to face whatever it is we are being called to face, or something for a higher purpose? And life, I mean, earthquake, I've been in many before and having to save the life of children during it. So there's always that higher purpose. It just, you don't really have to think about it. It's just there.
Mhm.
You just kind of do what you need to do. But I was thinking maybe just our Musar practice itself could be considered a higher purpose.
Maybe it could. An interesting thought. I had an idea and I just ducked out and pulled a slide. Here it is. No. From our first humility lesson, this um, teaching from Rabbi Simcha Bunim, where he had two notes in his pockets. And he said when his head was becoming swelled, he would pull out the I'm only dust and ashes. And when he was really feeling down, he would pull out the note that says the whole entire world was made for me. The idea that the world was made for me comes from the Genesis story where this entire world was made, and then there was the Adam, the first human, from whom we're all descended. And the idea was that world was created for humans. And so maybe in some of these difficult situations, kind of remembering our own divine spark, remembering, our place in the world. I don't know, maybe that could be a practice to regain equanimity, maybe not. Hey, Dave, thanks for joining.
Hello, Rabbi. Everyone.
We've been talking about equanimity and some, you know, what happens when the really tough stuff happens. It's kind of where
That's when
we
you need
go.
it most.
Yes, and when it can be hardest to access.
Well,
Bell?
it's extremely difficult to calm yourself down.
Yeah. Bell. So if you could remember to unmute, you got the hand up. That's good.
This is for you, Bonnie. I did it. Anyway, yeah, I get very quiet when I'm off balance. And I get into a space where I think I don't have the answer right now. And I know and I recognize that I'm out of balance and I don't want to put anything, say anything, or do anything that's going to add anything ugly, kind of like the ripple effect. So for me, I just get quiet and I ask for guidance
Mm,
because I truly believe that there is a higher power guiding me.
mm,
And if I'm just quiet enough, I get the answers.
mm,
I'll ask the question, what is it that I'm supposed to do here? Because I don't have the answer. And I don't have to be going and going and going and doing and doing and doing because my North Star is to be a decent human being and to look inside, figure out what my talents are, what my gifts are, what my, as I wrote to you, my divine piece of the puzzle, as they say. I think it's
mm,
a Kabbalistic saying. I can't remember where I heard it, but it made such good sense to me when I did. So that's what I do if I'm off balance. What it can be, with people, it can be with a world situation, it can be political, it can be health, it can be anything. And I just retreat for a while. If somebody calls it a cocoon, I guess that's what I do.
mm,
And then when I'm ready to be a light and not be darkness and add to the confusion or the misery, then I emerge again. And it's an ebb and flow for me.
mm.
So I will now mute myself.
Thank you, Bell. There's a story about a rabbi who retreated to a cave and for 10 years, and I'm blanking on who it is. When he came out of the cave, he was so upset that people were still desecrating Shabbat that he like things started catching on fire, and God told him to go back into the cave and cool off for a while. And sometimes that's what we need to do. Um, let's take a look as we get ready for breakout groups. All right, so it really likes this other slide deck that I opened. Um, Last time we did Equanimity, we spent the month on it, so we won't be able to do that this time. But as you go into your breakout rooms, maybe think about, and we've been talking about this today, but it's a chance to go deeper. What is a soul trait that disturbs your equanimity? And what's a practice you can do in the coming week for equanimity? Maybe it's something like meditation, which directly addresses and builds equanimity, or it might be indirect, like practicing a particular soul trait. So, um, for my example of getting too excited about the Knicks that I couldn't sleep, maybe I need meditation. Maybe it's I work on enthusiasm where I need to do a little bit less enthusiasm and stop reading every article I can see, about the Knicks. Okay, and while I set up the rooms, I'm just going to put up like a list of soul traits so you can kind of be reminded of some of the other soul traits that we have worked on. Um, the question is, oh, here's where I think. Hmm, there it is. Can you still see the soul traits, or are you seeing something else?
We can see them.
Okay, great.
Can you leave them up in the chat or either that or I'll just do a screenshot?
I would do a screenshot
Um,
because I don't think I can put them in the chat very
I
easily.
think you probably are correct.
Okay, the rooms are open.
Oh, it didn't stay.
Where's our fearless leader?
He's here.
Oh, he's not on my screen. There he is, way at the end.
Can't can't hear you.
I have been
Rabbi,
muted,
you're
that's
unmuted.
why.
Yeah, you were muted, sir.
So I was incredibly articulate during that time. But to not waste anyone's time anymore, let's go right to Bonnie.
So I said to my group, I have adult kids and I have two adult grandkids who are 23 and 21. And I have on a post-it, and I'm ready to put an ink on the inside of my hand that says, are you asking me for my ideas or opinion, or do you just want me to listen?
Mhm.
So they asked me to type it into the chat, which I did, and then it disappeared. So
Yeah.
I think you all got it, but
Yeah. That's a good one. You've shared that here before, and that's really one
that
I
has to do
try
with
to
Harry,
utilize.
who we haven't seen for a while, sending me to the book called Walking on Eggshells, Dealing with Your Adult Kids.
Hmm. Hmm. Maybe I'll take a look at that book too.
Very helpful.
Anyone else like to share a practice that they're going to do for the coming week? Or any other insights or subjects from your conversations? Yes, Wendy.
Well, I didn't think of this, but one of the people that was in our group thought of this, and I'm going to try it. It's quite choreographical. It's like a dance, if you will. And uh, he said, when you're faced with criticism and then you rise above it, it's a very visual thing. And then you look at the positive and negative, and then you can embrace what you need to do. And then you've got the power to do it. Instead of just immediately becoming defensive, like, then, you have a new plan, something to do. So I really appreciated that, Dave.
Yeah, that's a great framework. And the kind of mindfulness approach is you watch yourself having the reaction. And when you become that watcher, you have gained a piece of distance from it. So yeah, that is great. Wait, as you were talking about it, I almost was thinking of like Doctor Strange kind of becoming his ethereal self and rising out of his body and looking down at it. And we can do that without actually leaving our body or having an out of body experience, but it is something that we can do. And it starts with just noticing the reaction. Because once you're noticing the reaction, you're not living in the reaction anymore. Would anyone else care to share something? Okay, friends. Well, we will bring ourselves to a close. As I said in the email, we'll have 2 more meetings in June to study Ra, and then we'll go on hiatus for the summer. And I haven't kind of looked at my schedule enough to figure out whether we'll start in August or September. I often do like some kind of workshop around the Lul or for the high holidays. So probably we'll resume with one of those. Maybe it'll be the Psalm 27, maybe it'll be a different type of workshop. And then probably after Yom Kippur, we'll resume with Musar. So now let's close our eyes once again, taking a deep leisurely breath. A deep leisurely exhale. Let's try to inhabit that role of being the watcher. Just watching the breath come in, watching the breath go out. Noticing the breath coming in, watching the breath go out. And if our mind starts to wander, just notice the thought that comes into our head. We can watch those thoughts without inhabiting those thoughts. And then we can watch the thought leave our head. It's like being a good innkeeper. You welcome the guest in, you welcome the guest to leave when their time is up. But what the guest does is the guest's business. It's not something we need to attach ourselves to. We just watch. We watch the breath come in. We watch the breath go out. And when you're ready, you may open your eyes.